And we are live. We're so live. And I'm getting messages as we're going live. Oh, it's all right, sir. We're good. Take as much time as you want, person who messaged me. Danny Pinto here from the studios of the Seleção podcast in California as we are into the knockouts. All right. Can you hear me now? God damn it. What a start. What a start. We're having a great, we lost audio. Yeah, I'm muted. Yeah, I'm back. It's just, I tried a few new things before the show to see if I can give a little bit more pizzazz on this intro. And God damn it. It's all right. You know what? We move on. You know why we move on? Because Portugal's moving on. Portugal's moving on to the round of 16. It wasn't pretty like this beginning. It was not pretty these last 24 to 48 hours. But you know what? We continue. We move on. Thank you. And you know what? Hey, I'm going to put a message up right now. Oh, not that one. This one. You're back, bro. Hell yeah, Paulo. I'm back. You know it. God dang it. Yeah. Hey, Nathan, welcome. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
You're on the floor again. This was a topic of conversation after the last time you were on the show that you were broadcasting from your floor, but you told me something that like you're very comfortable. It's like the best spot for you in the house or something like that, right?
Yeah, it's a place where I know I won't be interrupted. I got me a drink here, And,
what do you got? What are we drinking there, pal?
A little Irish cream liqueur,
just
relaxing,
You're a madman. I'm having water.
Killing it. Yeah, but actually, so a bit celebratory, a bit, I don't know, discouraged, possibly sad drinking as well. I don't know how. It depends on how you feel about how the group stage went. I'm sure we're going to get into that here in just a second.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where there's a myriad of ways that you can look at this this last match, but we'll get into it. I will say that we not only have Nathan on the show today, but we do have friend of the pod, amigo du pod, Mr. Eric Krakauer. Eric, what's up, sir?
Good. How's it going? Good to see you both. Nathan, good to see your face not in person, but over a show or a Zoom or whatever this is for the first time ever.
Yeah, likewise.
See, this is what the podcast is about. It's bringing two guys together.
That's right.
It's what we're doing. Eric, appreciate you coming on and joining us today. Obviously, if you don't know, Eric is now playing trade as a play-by-play man for Apple Plus. How's that going?
It's going great. It's been very busy with midweek fixtures, as you know, because you've been doing some games in San Jose as well. So congested schedule, a lot of time in airplanes and airports, but loving every minute.
Are the miles racking up a little bit?
They are, but you'd be surprised at how much you don't get with all those miles, or how little you get would be a better way to put it.
Yeah. You know what? Hold on. I have another great comment here in the section here from Juju. That was like our start versus Georgia. I agree. The audio was off in the first couple of minutes in the Georgia match, so we're having fun here, guys. It's all good. Nathan on the floor equals a Portugal win. Let me get that on here too, because last time we had you were sitting on the floor. We had our best match of the tournament thus far.
It's a good omen. Let's keep it going.
Were you drinking a little bit of Irish whiskey, whatever it is you're drinking there? No?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, all right. Okay. If you're into omens, folks, it's a good one. First things first, we have Eric on. He's been such a supporter of the pod. Obviously, Nathan has too, but some unfortunate serendipity here having Eric on today because we did lose a big-time Portuguese legend in the footballing world, where Manuel Fernandes, who plied his trade at Sporting, unfortunately passed away today at the age, I believe, of 73. So, Eric, any words you can give the listeners and the viewers, because your post on X on Twitter This wasn't just any normal loss.
No, what I wrote, something along the lines of, to call him an icon, it doesn't do it justice. And the way I put it was that Manuel Fernandes was the spiritual voice of Sporting. The guy who represented the club as a player and then as a coach, but someone who was a brand ambassador throughout his entire career. Beloved by those who knew him well, always represented the club with honor. One of the most respected people in Portuguese football. Twice the national champion. 81, 82, I believe, was the last time he won the title. He was involved in that. Was it 7-1 against Benfica?
Move it along, Eric. Come on.
Which was a historic result. Portuguese international, although I don't think his Portugal career really reflected the kind of player that he was. I think recently he said something along the lines of, Gyökeres is the only player who is better than me. I'm probably butchering what he said, but I'm paraphrasing it. There was that touching moment with Fernandes and Gyökeres visiting him at the hospital with the national title trophy. But this is an enormous loss for Sporting because of what he represented. And so it will leave a gaping hole, I think, for all Sportingistas.
Yeah, very nice words from you, and our condolences go out to Manuel Fernandes and his family, and obviously the Sportingistas all around the world. So never a easy transition to go from something like that, but we do go into the football here, and in terms of mission accomplished, we're into the round of 16. We won our group as was expected, but there is a lot of I would say sour taste in our mouth following the loss yesterday to Georgia 2-0, where there was I believe 8 changes to the lineup. A lot of players getting their first action in the Euros for this tournament. Roberto Martínez once again going to the back 3, and in these first 3 matches, going to the back 3 has been somewhat problematic. In terms of tactics for oh man, I almost said it again, for Roberto Martínez. And obviously we found our biggest success in terms of just the aesthetics and the tactics, the game against Turkey. But we'll start with Nathan here. Nathan, what, if anything, can you take or do you take from yesterday's loss to Georgia 2-0?
Yeah, so if we're going to contextualize this, let's make sure we're as objective as we can. Let's tell all the good news, tell all the bad news, reflect on both. Sometimes when there's bad results,
are you telling me you're going to be fair and balanced?
On this
night,
I knew there was something funny about what I said there. I couldn't put my finger on it, but you got it, man. No, the thing is, I think there's a tendency to be concerned about a match like this, and for good reason. You never want to lose a match in a major tournament. I'm very adamant, no matter whether it's a dead rubber or not. You have to position the team to field the players who you in the formation that you believe gives you the best chance to win a match. Full stop. At the same time, I think it was actually 9 changes to the starting 11 made from the match against Turkey, and none of the substitutes, if I'm not mistaken, were starters either. So we've rested our entire starting squad. We've played a team who, let's give them some credit as well, have been very solid. I was looking on the Euro 24 stat pages. Their defensive solidarity in terms of metrics is very strong compared to the other teams in the tournament. They've had a good tournament. They have a great star man, Kvaratskhelia, who I just have loved watching for Napoli. He's just an exciting talent. And you can see where he gets his inspiration from too. I don't think anybody missed that as well. But they've just played well. They've and another thing that very important to remember this: we have a young CB, first major tournament appearance, and he's made 2 careless mistakes. They're bad mistakes, of course. Nobody wants to write them off as insignificant, but he doesn't make that mistake in the second, third minute of the match, something like that. It's a completely different match. So let's just remember that. On the bad side, the formation is shambolic. and I'll just pause there and hand it off to Eric, because I'm sure that he can make some comments on that too, and then I'll wrap it up later.
Okay, I'll take over. First of all, look, I agree with everything that Nathan said. I won't, except for the fact that the formation is shambolic. I don't think that the 3 center back system has worked. I think that has been a failed experiment, which is rather surprising, because when you look at the player profiles that Portugal has at its disposal, you would think that this is actually the perfect formation, especially if you're trying to shoehorn Cristiano Ronaldo into the 11, right? Give him an extra forward up there with him, so he's not isolated, which he was far too often in this game. Not because his teammates were too far away from him, but just because he was never able to really force himself into the game. And when he tried to do that, he moved away from the areas that he was supposed to be in, which is something that we've just seen over and over again from Cristiano, right? If he's not getting the ball, if he's not getting scoring opportunities, he's going to drift to the wings, or he's going to go far too deep. And we saw that once again. I am going to be a little bit alarmist, though. And I got trolled by someone. And I would assume that a lot of Portuguese fans would agree with what he wrote. I tweeted, or X'd, or whatever it is that you call it nowadays, that this was Roberto Martinez's first real test, and I meant it. The response, trolled, may be a little bit of an exaggeration from this fan who follows me. What about the game against Czechia? And yes, that was a test, undoubtedly. I think there was, even though that game was decided by fortune on the part of the Portuguese, there was some misfortune as well, right? A rare attack led to their goal. It was a beautifully placed shot, but Portugal seemed to be creating opportunities in that game. They just weren't effective at executing their last plays. We can disagree, or we can agree whether it was the first real test. But the reason I said that it was the first real test, number one, because the 3 center back system hasn't worked, and he's used it twice. So that suggests to me that this is a guy who does not have a preferred system, and he's still a little ambivalent as to which formation he wants to use. And I know that formations aren't everything in soccer. The game is absolutely fluid, but we have seen, as Nathan alluded to, that the movements with the ball, the movements off the ball, there's very little cohesion between the players. And then add to that all the switches that were made to the starting lineup, and there was clear dysfunction in terms of positioning, in terms of the movements. When Portugal had possession, who was supposed to move where. It was just chaotic. Momentum is a huge factor in tournaments like this. So you can lose your first game, especially when a third place team can qualify out of the group, and build momentum in the last 2 games. And I think what this does, it interrupts momentum. And it also takes a psychological toll on the team. And I don't know, who wasn't paying attention, but did you see the reactions from the Portuguese players? Did you see the reactions from Cristiano Ronaldo? This looked like a team that was rattled by what was happening. So when you factor all those 3 things, I think it's really problematic. And then I think there's some sort of poetic, not justice, but somebody will find the right term, that now we're facing in the round of 16 the team that delivered the first defeat to Portugal in a meaningless friendly, but where the same problems that we saw against Georgia were evident, right?
Yeah, they played in that back 3, yeah.
Right? The formation and the transition was bad. There was no cohesion. So it has left me a little concerned for sure.
Do you think, Eric, given who was sitting, and especially on the back end, and I've mentioned this numerous times on this podcast, and I'll go to it here, because I think that one of the things that Roberto Martinez has spoken about is the depth and the flexibility that this roster has, or this group of players has, with a flexibility perhaps to play 3 in the back with the wing backs, or then you just go back to a back 4 like we saw against Turkey. But is it? I mean, it was? I mean, to me, it was two things. I think he was just kind of going through the motions of this game, knowing that there was really nothing to gain, giving some players some time, but at the same time, trying to figure out, can I play this system with this number of players, because the majority of these guys are going to be around, heading into Nations League and World Cup qualifying, and with the exception of Ronaldo, likely. But I think he used this as more of a glorified friendly. I'm not saying that's the right decision, because I think that your momentum comment has a ton of merit. But I don't know. I just think that Roberto Martínez against Georgia used this as a let's get out of this as unscathed as possible, and then show up for the round of 16. That's a dangerous precedent to set. But this is just the thinking that I have going into the round of 16.
Nathan, I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the player selections, yeah, he's trying to preserve the starting 11 for the knockout rounds. But I would maybe slightly disagree. His use of the back three against Czechia proves that he does want to use this system for some reason, like to start the tournament with that formation, and not just that formation, but that formation with kind of a bizarre element or twist to it.
Well, we had three fullbacks on the field.
With Nuno Mendes on the left and Joao Cancelo. I don't know if you guys saw this in the first. There was a back pass from Ruben Diaz in the first half, and both Mendes and Cancelo converge on it, and they have this kind of awkward coming together, like they're surprised to see each other, kind of in the same place on the field. And it's I'm looking at the team sheet, and I'm thinking, well, that's where you're both supposed to be. So I mean, it just didn't make sense, and I think everybody saw that. Whether you were in the stadium, whether you're watching at home, it was pretty clear it wasn't working. The fact that he's gone and done this again against Georgia is what really, really concerns me. It tells me that there's something in here. He believes it can work. And I don't know why, because even going back into qualifying, where he used it once or twice as well, we forget. There's just no proof that this formation for our group of players is effective yet. Now, maybe he feels the back three and we just blow Slovenia out of the water in a few days here. I don't know, but that hasn't happened yet, guys. And that's all I'm saying is it's just worrisome. He's attempted this twice, and both times it's looked awful.
Right. You know what I find super unconvincing about Roberto Martínez? And listen, I think I would say that what he did in qualifying was very impressive. Don't get me wrong. And I was one of the few people, I think, who thought the hire wasn't a bad one, because I do believe that the reputation that he's gained from his days with Belgium is a little unfair, right? He got it to a semifinal of a World Cup, and I think he could have done better with Belgium, but it's not like he stunk up the place, right? Going back to your point, Nathan, about the back three, I think you're right. I think ultimately he wants to use the back three. He used it with Belgium. That was the system that worked for him. And what was interesting about that first game with Joao Cancelo is he tried to do something that I don't recall him ever doing, which was using the left wing back as an extra midfielder, sort of an inverted midfielder, which did not work well in terms of just the understanding of the positional understanding. Let's simplify it. The positional understanding. I remember the moment that you're talking about, Minge in that left-sided center back position, a position that I don't remember him ever playing as well. You shouldn't be experimenting. First time in his career. You shouldn't be experimenting in your first game in a major tournament. And yet you come out of that game relatively unscathed, and you dominate possession, and the goal is a low XG goal, Czechia's goal, a shot from outside. But going back to what your question was, Danny, about using this as a glorified friendly, I think maybe I don't think that's actually the case. I think that this was an opportunity to rest his starters, undoubtedly, but also get an idea of how the B team could do. But I think that he completely underestimated, how difficult it is to get a group of players to play together for the first time in a system that doesn't seem to be particularly well drilled. You can be talented, but if you're not quite sure about where you're supposed to be, what the processes with the ball are, what the processes without the ball are, it doesn't matter how talented you are because you're just disorganized. And I think that's what you saw in the game. And to that point, what also really worries me is that when they went forward, it was solely reliance on individual ability. There never seemed to me to be a cogent plan as to how to break down a deep block, which they knew they were going to find. They knew that Georgia was going to hit in transition. That was the only way that they were going to threaten. And that has actually been a problem that Portugal has had even before with Fernandes. When you have a lot of possession, you're not able to make inroads, and then your transitional defense isn't good enough. And going against Slovenia, you know that's exactly what the Slovenian head coach is looking at. This is a team that doesn't defend well in transition, will let them have the ball, and these are exactly the things that we're going to do to get at Costa's goal.
So it's a question that has been brought up on this pod with the viewers, with the listeners, and the followers of the pod when we're interacting. But how do you break down a team then that is playing as far back and playing as congested in that back behind that midfield line, like we're likely to see against Slovenia? Because what we've seen in these first three games, and for the majority of even during qualifying, the friendlies, and Eric, you mentioned it, even during Fernandes' time as manager, the ball is played always is a relative term. The majority of the time, the ball is played to the left or to the right. It's very rare that this team attacks through the middle. And with the amount of talent that lies in that midfield, you would think that we could get a little bit more, at least of an attack, at least an attempt to try to break down a defense instead of always looping it out from the wing. And I think that's something that I think the team lacks, is just a plan that does not coincide with just going left wing, right wing. Let's see if we could beat someone on the wing. Let's cross it into the middle and see what happens. There's no attack in the middle, and that's a little alarming given that who we have in the middle of that midfield.
Yeah, can I just speak to that point? Look, let's be fair. It's very difficult in a short amount of time for you to drill patterns of play effectively to break down low blocks. That's why teams that play with low blocks in major tournaments tend to do well. I mean, look at France. That's how they won a World Cup. Okay, this was a team that sat deep, gave a lot of freedom to Mbappe. Even Paul Pogba played defensively for most of the tournament, and then had magical moments in transition. So being able to cut through that sort of defensive block is very difficult to do. It becomes far more difficult when you don't have much mobility up front. And that is what we have seen continuously when you play Cristiano Ronaldo as the center forward. He's not going to give you the movement that you need. You know, Gonçalo Ramos, Jota, more Ramos than Jota, because I think Ramos is able to navigate tight spaces a little bit better, and he's a willing runner. But you need continuous positional interchanges in the attacking third so that you confuse the defensive team. You confuse their midfielders. Do they follow a runner? Do they leave the runner to one of the defenders? And it's those sorts of miscommunications that lead to the downfall of a team that sits back defensively. That is hard to do, but it is easier when you make the right personnel choices. And I don't think Roberto Martínez has made a lot of correct personnel choices. And insofar as personnel choices are concerned, let me just add one more thing that for me was disconcerting, which has nothing to do with your question. You start Padinha against Georgia. I understand the move. You can risk him getting a yellow. He's suspended for the round of 16. You would think that whether you get Slovenia or Hungary, you have more than enough depth to deal with them. And then you have a defensive stalwart in midfield to help you against France. Why pull him at the half?
I wrote that as one of my notes.
So the consistency of his sort of dubious personnel choices is there for everybody to see.
He did that against Turkey as well. He pulled out Palhinha against Turkey as well when that game was
on a yellow. He was on the yellow.
Well, that's true, but
Yeah.
okay. Well, that's true. Nathan, go ahead.
Man, you know, it's a lot. I agree with Eric's broader point that there, and yours as well, that the way we're attempting to break down these compact teams is pretty ineffective. I would say, in particular, the 3-man, you know, CB look has yielded a lot of stale possession. You know, and like when I look at the number of touches per player in both the Czechia match and the Georgia match, all the highest number of touches are on either the margins of the pitch or coming from the defense, which is to say the defense is way up, you know, kind of controlling the game, and we're just passing the ball around the perimeter looking for a way through. I really think Vitinha is going to be important against Slovenia, and here's why. It's not only because he plays with Ramos, who I do think could possibly work in tandem with Vitinha a little bit. It's because if you watch how Vitinha plays for PSG is the dominant force in Ligue 1. So they are playing a lot of matches like the one we're about to play against Slovenia, where they've got the opposition pressed deep up close to their own goal. And if you watch how he works the 1-2s, he's just such a genius with playing 1-2s direct through the middle. I really think Vitinha is going to give us a better chance. Remember, he didn't play against Georgia. There's a few players, I think if they're on the pitch, the match is different. Vitinha, Mendes, Pepe. You put those 3 on, we don't lose. I mean it. That didn't happen, and we can throw a pity party about that, but I think we're going to see the right players on the pitch. I don't know if they're going to be in the right formation, but we're going to see the right players. You know, the lineup against Turkey was perfect. The lineup against Turkey was exactly what I thought we'd see against Czechia, and it was brilliant. It worked perfectly. It's in Portugal's DNA to play a certain style of football, just like it's in the DNA of many nations to have there's a certain aroma that comes from the style of play. And for Portugal, the 4-3-3 is it fits us on this very deep level that I can't really describe it. Ever since I've watched Portugal, you know, going on 2 decades now, the 4-3-3 gets it done, and that's true with this group of players as well. So I hope that's what we'll see. I don't know whether we will or not. Can Ronaldo get it done? I don't know, but I want to point out one statistic too that I uncovered. Ramos was on the pitch for 25 minutes versus Georgia and touched the ball 6 times. 6 times.
Yeah.
So I don't know, guys. I mean, it's one thing to have the right players on, but if we're not going to field them right, I don't think it's going to make a difference.
Yeah, but the game is at a different point there, right? The game's locked up. You know, it was basically 10 players inside Georgia's 18, and good for them. I thought that their defensive structure was so impressive, and I thought Czechia's defensive structure was not as good, but you know, admirable nonetheless.
Yeah.
I think Vitinha is absolutely crucial, as you mentioned, and against Czechia, he was far too deep. He was far too deep. You want him sometimes coming in to search for the ball, but you don't want him stuck there. And that's why I think the double pivot is going to be the best formation against Slovenia, alongside not Palhinha, because I wouldn't risk him. I need him on the field in the quarterfinals. I think Danilo is a good guy to have there, also for the physicality, because Slovenia is a team that is going to try and beat you with dead ball situations, and Danilo wins a lot of his duels in the air. You can't just rely on Ruben. You can't just rely on Pep. His presence also mitigates for the fact that I would include João Cancelo in the lineup, who is a defensive liability, has always been. This is a guy who loses his mind twice a game, and if we're lucky, or his team is lucky, he doesn't cost the team. So I like him in the 11 though, because his ability on the ball is unmatched by any fullback or most players in the world in any position for that matter. And I think that he's got this sort of creativity, the craft to cut inside, dribble past a couple of players, commit some defenders, and open up space for somebody else. He's also a very good crosser of the ball, and he's got a very good shot. But you need somebody there to shift over to cover his lane, and that could be somebody like Danilo, even Vitinha, who does a lot of running. But I want Vitinha in the attacking third exactly because of those passing triangles that you were mentioning, Nathan. As for your point about the 4-3-3 or even a 4-2-3-1, Portugal's been famous for its wingers, right? Not for its wing backs. And regardless of the fact whether I think player profile wise, the three center back system works for this team with wing backs, you still have some very good wingers. And unlike in the World Cup, you actually have wingers who give you verticality, like Pedro Neto, right? Like Chico Conceição, whose personality rubs me the wrong way, but he's got that desire to
I call it grit. He's a gritty player.
It's grit. He reminds me of somebody who has a knife in between his teeth, like getting ready for a fight. And my last point on that is, I forget who it was, but somebody from the Argentine national team or an Argentine journalist said a while back, had Ronaldo not been Portuguese, had he played for another team, he would have won 1 or 2 World Cups already. And the point that he made was Portugal doesn't have a winning mentality, right? They never have. And I found myself getting very angry when I read that comment. And then I went to the pool and I was just sunbathing and playing around with my kids. And I thought, man, you know what? He's kind of right. There's an edge that's missing about this Portuguese national team that only a couple of players offer. Mm-hmm. Pep, of course, who, would commit all sorts of atrocities to win a trophy. Ronaldo, just for his personal edification alone. And now Chico Conceição as well. But other than that, I'm not saying that they're not players who play for winning teams, but do they have that, like, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to win this game mentality? I'm not so sure.
Man, as you go, I kind of went through the motions that you did when you heard it the first time. It's like, we don't have winning mentality. Like, come on, we have, and then you think about it, and it's like they have, with the exception of 2016, and I would say 2006, 2004 is just, it's one of those things. But this team, I think, has underachieved when it shouldn't, when it's had opportunity not to. And you can't win every single tournament. That's not realistic. But I think when they go out on their sword, it's not as heroic as it could be. And I think that, I thought Morocco was a perfect example. I thought when they lost to Spain in 2012, when to me it was they kind of quit during PKs. To be honest, it's almost like they just gave up. It's like, well, we could. They outplayed Spain in 2012, and I'll argue with anybody who wants to. They outplayed Spain in 2012, and yet when it came up to the biggest spot, no pun intended, they failed, and Ronaldo didn't even hit a PK, if memory serves in that
yes.
sequence. So
memory serves well. Trauma.
Yes. So yeah, I you want to change that. You want that mentality to change. But maybe he's right. Maybe that person's right. Nathan, what do you got there?
Well, I mean, where does that mentality come from, though? It's historical precedent. People forget Portugal's tournament legacy before Ronaldo and before the golden generation. We weren't even in the tournaments, y'all. I mean, you guys know. I mean, we weren't even there, right? So, I mean, when we talk about a winning mentality, that has been sculpted almost from nothing in just the last 25, 30 years. So we're still, and the players that are playing today, weren't even alive in some cases back when we were first really introducing ourselves and introducing the Portuguese brand of football in a significant way, right? I mean, if you think back about the tournaments, Euro 2000, we played one of the the most scintillating matches of all time against France in the semifinals of that Euros, right? And people were kind of like, who are these guys? They didn't even know who they were, Then the World Cup in 2002 comes in, and all the theatrics happen. We don't really get to play our best football, untimely red card, the Nuno Gomez incident, and all that. And in 2004, beating England, and so we're just building this reputation. Now, 20 years later, we've won a tournament finally. We've won a lesser tournament, the Nations League, and yet a lot of the guys playing now weren't around for a lot of the developmental phase that preceded all of these momentous events. And I think that makes a big difference to their mentality. They need to win. They need to establish themselves as winners, and that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, look, I think that's a good point. Look, there was a dry spell. Let's not forget that, before that dry spell, there was a third place in the 1966 World Cup, that's worth mentioning, and that there were dominant Benfica and sporting teams in Europe, and, then you have Porto in the 80s, so on and so forth. So there was talent, and there was a dry spell also for the 94 World Cup. An offside goal that Italy scores, Rui Costa red card.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't quite go their way.
Yeah.
That killer instinct, funny enough, or something close to it, I feel like I saw in 2000, which for me was the greatest performance from a Portuguese national team. Was the Abel Xavier handball a handball? I'm reluctant to say yes, but yes, it probably was. But there shouldn't have been a golden goal, so that's a whole different discussion. But in that tournament, they took it to teams. Playing England, going down 2-0, it didn't even seem to faze Portugal that they were down 2-0, the way they responded. And that sort of response is a rarity. Watching the game against Georgia, I was reminded of the game against Morocco. And I knew, I think I tweeted at the time, that once Morocco scored, I didn't see any way through. There was nothing confidence-inducing about that performance, despite all the possession, and then how shaky it was anytime in transition. So these are the things, when I look at games like that set a precedent. When I look at a game like this against Georgia, who had nowhere near the same talent as Portugal had on the field. They had the grit, they had the desire, they had the belief, and they had something to play for, which makes a huge difference, right? And there are some players out there who don't want to get injured, and but they should have wanted to play for a spot. Because I'm sure that there were guys who started for Portugal against Georgia who thought, if I have a good performance here, I could probably work myself into the 11.
Yeah.
But a couple of points that we haven't made about the game. The refereeing was super inconsistent. Cristiano Ronaldo should have had a penalty.
Absolutely.
That goal goes in. I think it's a different game because all of a sudden that shakiness and that nervousness that even Dalot admitted to in the press conference after the game, or wherever he gave the interview, would have dissipated. Right? Okay, we're back into this. We're not in such big trouble. That was one. What was the other thing? Oh, the other is Roberto Martínez, man. You had a chance to, if not to start clean, at least to lay down the law with Cristiano Ronaldo, which is, look, man, I want you to be a part of this project. You still have a lot to offer, but I can't promise you starting football. Two things suggest to me that Roberto Martínez is under a spell. One, the ludicrous comments that he makes in those press conferences. The pass to Bruno Fernandes should be taught in academies. Why?
At 5 or 6.
Why? Why
Find
does it have to be
the open player?
Something as obvious as that. The fact that it was a bad that he was onside because it was a bad defensive line, a bad offside trap. Like, what is it? Right? The fact that he constantly has to defend him, right? And if he were smart, he would just say, guys, stop asking ridiculous questions. He scored this many goals. Let's leave it at that, period. But then he starts him in this game. Why? Because he knows that Cristiano Ronaldo wants a goal, and he's thinking, against Georgia, Cristiano Ronaldo is going to get his goal in a 6 Euro, right? And it's going to be another record for him. And for me, that betrays a coach who isn't firm about his decisions. And not too long ago, I said to somebody who had Portugal as a favorite in this tournament, as the favorite in this tournament, somebody who's not Portuguese said to me, was saying, you know, Portugal, all the talent, a B team, even a C team, so good. And my comment to him was, yeah, plenty of talent. But I wonder if Roberto Martínez has that strength of character to make really tough decisions. And for me, he hasn't shown that he does. Every controversial decision that he's made is an easy one. Like leaving guys like Pot. I know I'm a Sportingista, I get it, but leaving guys like Pot out of the national team, it's easy. Pot is an easy guy to leave out, right? He's a Sporting guy. He doesn't have a big name, you know. Not giving what's his face? I can't think of his name right now. Nuno Santos. Not ever giving him a chance. Oh, there's a lot of depth on the left side. Is there?
Yeah, we have one left back right now.
Yeah, is there a lot of depth on the left side? I know that Nuno Mendes is a fantastic talent, and I love him to bits, but he spent half the season injured. Meanwhile, this dude is balling out for Sporting. You never even gave him a look. And then you use the excuse, oh, I didn't bring them in for March, so I can't really bring them in now because they're not intrusados with what I'm trying to do. Come on, man. Like, there's a lot about Roberto Martínez that is making me feel very shaky right now.
Nathan, what do you got there?
Yeah, I think most people would share that sentiment for various reasons, even if some of the individual points they might take a slightly more nuanced stance. I think the comments about Ronaldo, for example, it's just another effort that a manager is making to kind of put those off. You know, I agree. He could come out and say something different. You know, stop asking guys. He could do that, but that's clearly not his personality or his mannerisms. He strikes me as a really, really smart guy. He's very thoughtful. There's no doubt that his preparation is thorough, and I don't question his intelligence in any way. I think, as Eric pointed out, though, his resolve, that's another matter. And yet, I will point out, though, there is some stubbornness there. Let's not forget, he's attempting to put formations on the field which don't work. And he keeps doing it. That's stubbornness, right? It may not come out in the way he speaks about it, but that's stubbornness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessarily positive stubbornness either. So whether or not he plays or not, you know, I look back at the Georgia game. I don't know if it would have mattered who we had in Ronaldo's position. I think that match would have gone exactly the way that it did. It was a poor match. I don't really feel at any point, first half, second half, before the goals, after the goals, where we really had them under threat in a way that I really felt they were going to concede and we were going to turn the game on its head. You know, I just kept waiting for that moment. Okay, we're going to turn this game on its head. We're going to bear down, find the path through, and it's going to just completely turn the pattern of this game around. That never occurred. Similar to Morocco, as you pointed out, I kept waiting for that. Never was there a moment where I was like, oh, it's about to happen. We're going to get them. Just didn't happen. There was the sense you got watching that was one of futility. And you felt that same kind of hopelessness, you know, watching the match. I felt the same tension with the match against Czechia too, honestly.
Yeah.
And I will point out, guys, if not for that own goal, we lose that match.
Mm-hmm.
Believe me, I've seen it happen so many times now. Believe me, we lose that match if it's not for that own goal. And that's luck. You know, football has, you know, you're going to get good luck and bad luck. There's no sense in trying to rationalize that, right? Because luck is irrational. It happens. But I do think it's worth pointing out that this is a manager that we're stuck with, for better and for worse, who likes to tinker. He likes to think maybe a little bit too much. And he is stubborn about the wrong things, maybe as Eric is pointing out. If you're going to be stubborn about something, it needs to be about the right things. You know, I think what he is stubborn about are some of the things that just don't make any sense. And it's plain as day for most people to see. I would think even neutrals at this point would recognize some of what he's trying just isn't working.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I just say something about the stubbornness? You know, it's funny. My colleague and co-commentator Lloyd Sam, we've had discussions about stubbornness in coaching. And do you know what he calls stubbornness in coaching? Bad
What?
coaching. I was making a case that a manager's downfall was his own stubbornness. And he kept telling me, Eric, what you're calling stubbornness is bad coaching. If you are stubborn about something you're trying to implement as a coach and it isn't working and you don't change it, that's not stubbornness. It's bad coaching. And I understand. I think he's right as well. But just real quick, Danny, I need to address a couple of comments that are
go ahead.
Been made. Jamie Drummer, who's the world-class striker to start instead of Ronaldo? I'm sorry, Ronaldo is not a world-class striker anymore, number one, okay? He's still a very effective goal scorer, don't get me wrong, but you got to cater to his strengths. Number two, you don't need world-class players in every position in order to win games. You need to put the best 11 that works together and can transmit the ideas of the coach onto the field. We saw what happened against Switzerland in the World Cup, 6-1. A lot of that had to do with a little bit of good fortune in the beginning, because people forget that Switzerland had their chance in the beginning, but also very good pressing from Portugal. And who led that pressing? Gonçalo Ramos, a willing runner, a guy who runs the channels really well. So sometimes it's about putting somebody in a position to succeed and to really implement what it is that you're trying to do. Nuno Mendes is a world-class player. I wouldn't call him world class. I think he's the best. He's one of the best left-sided defenders, left-sided players who plays defense in the world because of what he does mostly on the offensive side. But listen, his one-on-one defending needs a lot of work. What I'm going to do is I recommend that whoever says that looks at some PSG games and some Portugal games and looks at Nuno Mendes defending one-on-one. His body positioning is all wrong. I'm not the only person to say it. It was actually pointed out to me, and now I've paid more attention to it. So I get that people have their favorites, and for me, he's the starting left back of this team. But nobody on this Portuguese national team is a perfect player, okay? The closest to it is Pep and Vitinha. Those are the closest players to perfect, okay? Bernardo has his issues. One of my best players, probably the best player in the Premier League, and so does Bruno Fernandes, who is the heart and soul of this team, okay? That's another thing. You know, somebody said he misplaced a lot of passes. His response was perfect. Yeah, that's because I'm trying to make passes that are risky. That's right. He's trying to instill some craft into Portugal's game, which nobody else seems to have.
You know what, Nathan, you've used this term before in talking about Portuguese teams of the past, a swashbuckling attitude, a swashbuckling attack. And there is something that is missing in that. And that kind of goes to what Eric was saying too. There doesn't seem to be, and against Czechia and then the Georgia match, I should not dismiss it, but I'm going to just in this argument, because I think how they opened against Czechia was alarming in terms of they just seemed to not want to dictate the attack. They were just trying to have the ball. They would even stand with a goddamn ball at their feet sometimes, waiting for guys to move around instead of making the ball move the defense and open something up. And to Eric's point, yeah, there's going to be passes that are not going to be made all the time, which sometimes is because you're taking a chance, you're taking an opportunity. There's a saying, if you don't take a chance, and this is not the saying, I'm just going back to what I was about to say. If you don't take a chance, sometimes you're never really going to know if it's going to work. And if the basics aren't working, you have to figure out, all right, I'm going to, someone's making a run. I'm going to put the ball in a position to where it may not get to him directly, but then give him an opportunity to make that play. There has to be more of, not carefree, but there has to be more of there needs to be a fear from the defense that Portugal's going to do something. And there hasn't been in this tournament at all. And that's something that is very worrying, considering, again, the players that are on this team in those attacking positions.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the one detour I'll take from criticizing Martinez is to make a few comments about Rafael Leao. I think the player we had hoped he would be fulfilled just about everything you just said. For the second tournament running, That has just not been the case. Additionally, guys like Chico, Pedro Neto have either been played out of position, as Neto was against Georgia, or they're played using tactics that don't suit their ability. So we're not really getting a look at some of these swashbuckling type figures. Central midfield is congested. We have meaningless possession. There's nowhere to run. Other teams have long since figured us out. They know how to play us. That's my greatest fear with Slovenia. They know exactly how to play us. They've got the roadmap, and not just because they played us 3 months ago either, but because they've been watching. I agree that if we do not find a performance in an individual, someone to cut open a defense with a bit of skill that is not beyond them, because we've seen it at club level, if we don't get that type of play, I don't know that we'll beat Slovenia. But even if we do, we won't get much further than that. We're getting to a point where there needs to be someone, despite Martinez's tactics and his overthinking and all of the stuff that you might, the bad refereeing and Ronaldo, all the things, we need someone to just play well and do something spectacular. Every team needs that. Every team gets stuck at some point. Even I would point out France. France is stuck right now. They scored 1 goal in this tournament, a penalty. Penalty and an own goal. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all they're stuck right now. They need an Mbappe or Griezmann or someone to get them out of their funk. We're in the same position.
Mm-hmm.
Who's it going to be?
Yeah. And I would argue that for France, it's Griezmann. When France win, Griezmann is unbelievable. Just the work that he does in midfield, in the attacking third. Look, for me, the key is Bruno Fernandes. Because of his creativity. When I said the players don't have a killer instinct, I think that Bruno is a guy who just wants to win at all costs. I just believe that sometimes frustration gets the better of him, and he loses too much time, gesticulating and being frustrated and talking to the referees. It's one of the reasons a lot of Manchester United fans, even though he's by far one of their favorite players, get frustrated with him, and so do pundits, and for good reason. They make silly comments like he shouldn't wear the armband for Manchester United. I mean, that's ridiculous. But to jump on your point about Rafael Leão, there are very few players that I find more exasperating than Leão. His mentality. I wish he had just an iota of Chico Conceição's mentality. Just a little bit of Kylian Mbappe, because not only does he have the skill, but he has the physical attributes.
Mm-hmm.
But what's going on in here, man? It's lackadaisical defending, which we saw in the 2022 World Cup, where I thought, why aren't you tracking back? They're overloading your side, and you're just standing there doing nothing. You can give Mbappe the freedom to do that for France because the entire team is built to sustain that. Portugal doesn't have the luxury of having 2 luxury players, Rafael Leão and Cristiano Ronaldo. And to be fair to Cristiano, he has tried to work in this tournament. He's been doing a lot of running. I don't want to suggest that he doesn't try to do it. He just doesn't have the capacity to do some of the things that we need him to do right now.
Or that he used to do.
Or that he used to do. But this was this is a winger turned forward. And by forward, I mean an unconventional forward. It's a shame. Can you imagine Cristiano Ronaldo at his very apex with this supporting cast?
Oh, yeah.
It's been said. It's been said. I've seen that comment doing the rounds on social media.
Let's find that time machine.
By the way, Paulo Miguel saying, Eric, would you say that about João Felix? I'm assuming, would I say that about Rafael, the same thing about João Felix as I would about Rafael Leão? Absolutely.
Both those two are the perfect examples.
Maybe even worse, because João Felix is a generational talent.
Yeah. Go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah, I would say that, and I would also say Bernardo Silva, in spite of his goal, I still think there's more with him. I do think he is continually not in his best role for Portugal. I don't know if there's anything that's ever going to change that now. I've kind of beat that drum for years. I think the first time I remember seeing the confirmation he belonged in midfield was in 2018. We were losing to Uruguay. Bernardo Silva's in central midfield, and he's just bossing it. He's just bossing it. And we're losing them. We lose the match, and we get knocked out of the tournament. But it's just extraordinary when he's played rightly. But I still think, regardless, his skill on the ball, if you watch him play for City, he has a special relationship with the ball. It's extraordinary. And I think a player like that has just got to do better. And then the only I will say this about, we've kind of gone back and forth about who should be our starting striker. You need your striker to do all kinds of things. You need him to be able to run. You need him to be able to hold the ball up. You need him to be able to head the ball well. You need them to be able to finish. When I look at, and a few other things, but those are kind of the top few. When I look across all those competencies, I still think it's debatable who would do it best, Ramos or Cristiano. The difference between the two is Ronaldo's proven himself quite often. Ramos just hasn't yet. Switzerland, yes, he was extraordinary, but he's also gotten a lot of mileage out of that. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Ronaldo has been pretty consistently excellent, and when he's played again in a decent formation with decent players around him, as he was against Turkey, he was good in that match. And I think there were times he should have had a penalty against Georgia. Had a good shot on goal. You give him any kind of support, I think he's going to score. He didn't get that. I think he finished the match with something like 30 touches or something. I mean, that's not much in 60 minutes of play. But like, as I pointed out, Ramos wasn't touching the ball either. We couldn't get any crosses in. So I'm not saying you're wrong about Ramos or whatever. I think their characteristics are different based on their age, based on their skill set. And I still think we need to kind of have a look at the opponent and make considerations based on, how we think we can hurt the opponent the most.
Yeah.
I do want to point out in the chat, and it is something very, very Portuguese that we do. And I said you do. Oh, no, we just missed that one there. Jason Jardine, this is a very Portuguese show right now, Luciano. This is what we Portuguese do. And I don't disagree. I think, there's some recency bias here because no one likes to talk about a game after a loss. There is something where I think that for me anyway, because I host a podcast. I'm no journalist. I'm no nothing. I'm just a fan who likes to talk about this team with everybody else. But I think there continues to be a lingering feeling that if it's not now, when is it going to be? And I think I think what fans are mostly afraid of is missing another opportunity, I guess, with this squad, because ever since 2000, we have been in every single tournament, and we saw what 2000 brought in terms of putting Portugal in the eyes and ears of Portuguese of soccer fans around the world. Then we saw 2004 where we hosted the tournament and getting to the final. 2006 to me, Eric, you mentioned 2000 being maybe one of the best teams. I thought the 2006 team was without a doubt the best Portugal team that I remember watching. But that's not the debate here. The debate is that we're getting so close. We got close. We tasted victory in 2016. I think there's an argument from fans, not an argument, but there's a sense from fans that I get that what we are tired of is missing out on opportunities that could present themselves if this team just applied itself to its attributes and it was coached properly. So I think there's more worry. I think there's more, we don't want to miss out. And this team is as talented as any team left in this tournament. But is that going to result in us winning a trophy? That's never a guarantee. And that's something that we're questioning because, we have a coach that is choosing to figure out how to best field this team in the middle of a tournament. We have an aging superstar who is one of the greatest of all time, yet may not be contributing. And Eric, I read the goal article. I thought it was slanted a certain way, but it's fine.
Slanted.
but yeah, I mean, we've reached a point where it's totally fair to question Ronaldo's spot. It's totally fair to question Roberto Martinez's tactics, but I think it all comes out of fear of missing out. And I think that's what the biggest thing is right now. And Nathan, are you good on time, or do you have to get going?
Yeah, we'll continue a bit longer.
Okay, perfect, man. What I do want to do is, because I reached out to everybody on Twitter, and I want to make sure that I respect the folks who sent in questions. We may have already addressed some of these things, but I want to get a handful of these questions to you guys and make sure that they get on the show here. First one is from the Azorian Alchemy. So first of all, I'm loving these names already, but he or she, don't know. He was at the match in Germany, so kudos to him getting there. Zero energy. We approached it like a friendly. However, in person, Ronaldo really does not look right. Perhaps it's age, but a step slow and off the pace. Nev, Spalinga, and Shiku were good. Everyone else average or worse. I would add, mostly in the first half, I thought João Felix was not very, very good, but I thought he was good. Considering that he hasn't been playing, I think there's still a lot of pressure on him to perform in a Portugal shirt, given the transfer from a few years ago. It hasn't quite yet worked for him. He's still young. He's like 23, 24. But I thought he could have gotten some consideration there from Azorian Alchemy there, but that's just one of those questions here. And then I want to pull up one. Where did it go? It's from the Portuguese Chicagoan, and I'm not going to pull it up here. Just I want to kind of paraphrase it. Have you seen? Is it fair to say that's
the guy who was trolling me, by the way?
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. I responded. So
okay. Is there a bit of overreaction to this loss, given what was already known in terms of place, in terms of position, and in terms of the team that was fielded?
I guess we'll find out. I guess we'll find out against Slovenia. Look, let me start with this one. I think there's always a little bit of overreaction. We are Portuguese. We're used to being cynicism is in our DNA. We have Fado as our national music, for a reason, not folklore. I'm kidding. Folklore as well.
And saudade is our word.
Yeah, saudade is the word, which people say there's no English translation. Yes, there is. Longing. Maybe the feeling isn't
good or bad. Yeah.
Yeah. But the problem is, and I tend to say this a lot, I've seen this film before. And that's the thing. This is a repetition of issues that have afflicted this national team for a long time. Whether it was under Fernandes, whether it was under oh my God, his name was at the tip of my
Paulo
Bento, whether it was under Paulo Bento, it just seems like it's always the same thing, and forgetting that the collective is the most important thing. First of all, right? The collective, a cogent game plan. But we fall into the same trap. And somebody wrote, for years we've played the same way. Yes, which is, I know we've had some issues in qualifying where we've almost not made tournaments. But when we're dominant, it's passing the ball, and bullying some minnows, right? And then getting this inflated sense of self. Oh, we're like one of the favorites. And then we go into tournaments and we're like, we're not really one of the favorites. We're one of the underdogs. And they can't quite decide what their identity is. It's just rinse and repeat over and over again. So are we overreacting? Maybe a little bit, but this has been on repeat for a while.
Nathan, do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, yes, of course. There's nobody wants to see Portugal lose. I hate when they lose. I don't like it when they lose friendlies. I get upset.
Me neither.
I have to be by myself. sometimes. I'm just going to confess, like, I can't be around people after Portugal lose. I can't do it.
How are you during a match? Because there's some folks that can't watch a game with anybody. They have to be.
I watch
by
the
themselves.
game, but normally with a bad attitude, if I'm honest. Unless we're killing them, and then it's different. But I'm a very skeptical person, overthinking, overanalyzing, and some of that comes out as pessimism after a match that we've lost. So that's kind of my excuse, I guess, for being pessimistic. I do think there are some things that it's okay to be unhappy with. It's okay to be unhappy with the shit formation. It's okay to be unhappy.
Whoa, hey!
It's okay to be unhappy that that we had Pedro Neto playing left wing back for the first time in his career, a position he's never played before. I don't know if Pedro Neto's ever played defense at all, ever, because he doesn't do that. He's a very different type of player. These things are okay to be unhappy about. I just think it's important to remember. And didn't it feel good too while we were losing? Didn't it feel good to know that nothing was going to happen either way? We were still going to make it to the round of 16. I just kept comforting myself with that, like, it's going to be okay. We're qualified, so it's okay to be unhappy with that. But I would totally agree with Eric's point. I've seen this film as well. It's the same tired story. I don't like seeing it, and whenever I do see it, it upsets me. Sure. And I think a lot of people are having that reaction on Twitter as well.
Okay, this next question is from Miguel da Silva on Twitter here, and I picked this picture or this tweet for me first to answer because Diogo Costa was one of my players that I was hoping would have a big tournament because I, for whatever reason, and again, I felt this was just a personal feeling that I had, but I thought that almost disaster that he had against Ghana in the World Cup really shook him the rest of that tournament, and then having as easy a time as they had during qualifying, he hasn't really had a test since. But the question here from Miguel da Silva, although not his fault on the 2 goals, is Diogo Costa the right choice for the starting goal keeping position? I don't think Diogo Costa has played bad at all. Again, he hasn't had that many opportunities, and the opportunity against Georgia, I mean, one, it's in the 2nd minute. Obviously, you have to be ready. But that striker shot it from like 7 yards away. He does what he's supposed to do, which is protect the near side of the post, and he goes far post. Credit to the striker. I'm not really sure what he could have done. And then on the PK, he guesses the correct spot. He just gets there a fraction of a second too slow, and it's a goal. Yeah. I don't think Diogo Costa has done anything to cost himself a spot as the starting goalkeeper. And I think even Roberto Martínez was asked about it when talking about, some wholesale changes. That's a spot where you don't change, is what he said. I'm paraphrasing here. That's debatable based on a game that doesn't mean anything with players that aren't going to start. So whatever the case is, but I am, I guess, jumping on the Diogo Costa defense train because there's no reason that he hasn't displayed anything that would make me question why he's playing goalkeeper. I don't know if you guys want to address that at all.
Go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah, I mean, any keeper who's faced with some of the chances that were given up by our very poor defense against Georgia is going to struggle. Penalties are hard to save. I forget what the statistic is. I think it's very unlikely to save a penalty, and I think a lot of people forget that. Donnarumma saved a penalty for Italy against Croatia. He's a PK saving specialist. It turns out
he's a giant.
His physique is just so extraordinary. But it's pretty rare to save a penalty. What really in a major tournament, what you want to see is something very similar to what we got from Rui Patricio in 2016. Just no mistakes. No mistake. You don't have to make fabulous saves all the time. You're going to have to make a few, as he did, especially in the final against France.
There's a statue that proves it.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to have to make a few, but really, it's no mistakes. You need that. You need confidence. With whoever's between the sticks, you need confidence. He doesn't have to be able to distribute like Manuel Neuer or whatever. That would be nice. But he didn't have to do that. Costa's not making mistakes like he did against Ghana, as was mentioned, and that's good enough for me.
Yeah, and I there's a few people in the chat that are mentioning the bad pass out of the back, which led to the PK against Antonio Silva.
Yeah.
That's fair, but once it's out of his, I mean, I'm saying like he's not making a direct mistake. I guess that's an indirect mistake, and that's a fair assessment. But a direct mistake, a frango that we like to say, I don't think he's there, or he hasn't made that yet. But
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say he should be the starter and not listen to someone who says José Sá should be in there, or hell, even Patricio. I'll have that conversation. For me, from someone who said that I was maybe questioning mentality or just a question mark going into the tournament, I don't think he's done anything to jeopardize his spot. I guess that's where I'm coming from. Eric, what do you got?
It's interesting. I've spoken to somebody who coached Diogo Costa, who told me that he is probably the most talented goalkeeper that Porto has ever had, and which is quite a statement, right? Vitor Bahia, although his feet were sometimes questionable. Well, there was a lot that could be questionable about Vitor Bahia at times because he was also likely to make some pretty big mistakes. And I remember his campaigns with Barcelona very, very well, as well as Porto, but he made bigger mistakes for Barcelona than for anybody else. I've always liked José Sá. I think his metrics this season for Wolves are better than any Wolves goalkeeper ever. Although he did have a pretty big howler this season in the Premier League. I forget whom it was against, but he's an excellent goalkeeper. But again, look, I don't think there's any questioning that it shouldn't be questioned that Costa is a very talented goalkeeper. I think these mistakes are just part of the maturing process. His rise was very, very quick, especially insofar as the Portuguese national team is concerned. You guys are talking about a mistake against Ghana. I keep thinking about, him against Morocco on that cross. I know that Ruben Dias was also poorly positioned. I don't remember everything because I can't watch that game because it hurts. It hurts a lot because that 6-1 against Switzerland kind of made me feel a little bit more confident. And then reality set in very, very quickly. But I think he should be the starter without question. But we do have a number 2 who could easily be the starter as well. But he's done nothing to lose his spot in this tournament.
Okay, last one here is from Paulo Reis on Twitter here. He says in Portuguese, estamos feitinhos ao bife se o Martínez pensa que estes 3 na defesa vai fazer alguma coisa contra a Eslovénia. Not my greatest Portuguese, but I forgot that there was Portuguese in the beginning there. I think, but to his point here, as we keep going, keep things simple, play the players in the right position, get players into the midfield, break the lines rather than always playing sideways. I think I think the term overthinking can be a bugaboo with Roberto Martínez, which is, again, like there's no middle, right? From these last 2 managers that we've had, it was the consistent, no tweaking anything with Fernandes, and then it's let's tweak everything at times with Roberto Martínez. And I guess we would like to get something in the middle. I think we're going to get that middle against Slovenia. I think we're going to go back. Just my thinking here. I think we're going to go back to the formation that we had against Turkey. I do think it's going to be Costa in the back, Cancelo, Dias, Pep, and Nuno Mendes. I think you're going to see Vitinha and Bruno Fernandes. Eric, I think you were mentioning. I don't know if you play Palhinha. I don't think you should. But I don't. But should we? Is the other question?
We shouldn't. But he's going to play Palhinha because. You know how we're concerned about the game against Slovenia?
He's
Fernando Martínez. Jesus, that's his.
That's you know what? Hashtag
that's trauma right there. That's trauma and a Freudian slip right now. Roberto Martínez. He has been shaken by this. Don't the whole like, oh, this will better prepare us against Slovenia. Blah 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 blah. I mean, maybe there's a little bit of truth to that, but ele está assim. He knows that the entire nation is rattled, okay, and that puts pressure on a coach as well. He's going to second guess what he's doing, which he's already been doing. So he's going to third or fourth guess what he's doing. And he is going to put his strongest 11 out there. And that includes Padinha. And he'll deal with the yellow card if he gets it once he gets France or Belgium. Let's hope it's Belgium if we get through. Because if not, we are through when it comes to France. I know what you're saying, Nathan. You're right. They haven't played particularly well, but that is France, and they get it done in tournaments.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I definitely, want to focus on the match versus Slovenia. I think, to the commenters' points, even if we play in that refreshingly straightforward, direct style that we're hoping, this is still going to be a really difficult match. And I hope people are emotionally preparing themselves for that. Slovenia was difficult to break down in the group stage. And even though I would never want to compare the Seleção to England, I will say even England, as good of players as they have, say what you will about their tactics and their manager, they also struggled mightily with Slovenia. And I think there's going to be some moments in the match, like we were talking about. There's going to need to be some ingenuity, some players play above themselves even to get through this. No mistakes football. Any mistake we give them, similar to against Georgia, is going to be punished. Slovenia are looking for that. So it's going to be a tough match. I agree. I think we're going to see our best 11. I think we'll see some better football. I think we win the match.
Me too.
And I think it's not going to go all our way either at times.
Yeah, no, for sure. This is a tournament.
Ahead.
This is a tournament. And qualification is a lot different. Group stage and qualification for a major tournament is a lot different than essentially playoff games, what the Brazilians call mata-mata, right? The one-off games where you win and you go through. Just a different mentality, man. Just a different mentality. And I would say that the key to the game for me, and I think somebody mentioned this in the comments, and they're 100% correct. Portugal goes into every game, the first 5 to 10 minutes, very sleepily. It's like they're somnambulant out of the tunnel into the game, and they get woken up. I used to say all the time that Portugal plays their best football when their backs are against the wall. That's no longer the case because now they're too frigid. So first 5 to 10 minutes, conservative, solid, no mistakes, and take it from there. If not, we're going to be behind the 8 ball right from the start. Because Slovenia is going to come out with some aggression. I would put money on that.
Well, what do they have to lose, right? I mean, again, it's similar to Georgia. Georgia had everything to play for because they were playing for a spot in the knockouts. Mm-hmm. Slovenia is playing house money when it comes to they're playing against Portugal, right? Like that's the attitude that they're likely to have. It's like this team should beat us, so why not leave everything on the field and prove everybody wrong? That's a dangerous type of team to play against. When all the pressure is on Portugal in this match. Mm-hmm. Slovenia can play carefree. Yep. They can play with the swashbuckling attitude that teams of Portugal past have played. This is a very dangerous team to play against. I would say more so than a France or a Belgium or an England if we had them because both teams in those scenarios, both teams have the pressure of advancing. Slovenia, no one other than maybe in that locker room would expect Slovenia at the beginning of this tournament to make it to the quarters and beating Portugal in the process.
And Slovenia have beaten us three months prior.
Absolutely.
Now, to be fair, that match was another just bizarre experimental lineup. There were 2 defensive midfielders, kind of stacked one on top of each other. Danilo was kind of coming back down into the back 3, back 4, whatever you want to call it. It was this, it was one of those wonky things. It didn't work. We lost. And hopefully we won't see that, in the round of 16. But Slovenia, the way that they see the matter is we beat these guys just 3 months ago. And so they're going to bring that confidence into the match as well.
Yeah, they have a great keeper in Oblak. So
they got an excellent, forward in Šeško. They have a former Sporting Club Portugal player in Sporar, and Braga player. He went to Braga as well. He probably wants to prove the Sportingistas wrong, for letting him go and giving him abuse. Listen, I watched their games. This is a very functional team. 4-4-2. They defend in a 4-4-2. They attack in a 4-4-2. Hit the ball wide. They rely a lot on set pieces. They're good on set pieces on both sides of the ball. This could be a nightmare team. Look, at the end of the day, I think Portugal is going to win this game. I agree with you, Nathan, that they're going to be calafrios, as they say in Portugal. I don't have any nails left. Although I did promise myself, and so far I've been good about this. After we won in 2016, I said to myself, no more losing your mind with these games. I still get upset, but I keep reminding myself it's actually very therapeutic. We've won a tournament. In my lifetime, we've won a major tournament. I'm good. I don't want to be greedy. But considering how much talent is available, and by the way, whoever said on the group, this team isn't as talented as people think. Yeah, it is. It is. It's about the collective now. And then somebody asked, do you drop Bernardo Silva? No. And Nathan, I'm so glad you remember that about Uruguay. Bernardo Silva, for me, is a quintessential 10. I know he plays out wide, right? But he's not really a winger, not even an inverted winger. He doesn't have the explosiveness. He just has that ball on a yo-yo. His ability to ride a challenge, to hurdle over a tackle, find that last ball. The problem is we got too many cooks in the kitchen. What do you do with Bruno Fernandes? He can't really play anywhere else. So. And Fernandes actually tried to put these guys in the middle, all of them. And then we had no width. And then we pushed our fullbacks too far. And in transition, we were disastrous, which we always are. Yeah, very interesting to see what lineup he goes with and how he approaches this game. But if he doesn't go with a double pivot in this match,
oh my God, I haven't heard that term in a long time, bud.
I'm going to be so worried. I want to see Danilo in there because I don't want Pelini to get the yellow card next to Vitinha, giving Vitinha a little bit of liberty to go forward. But it's not going to happen.
Yeah, just a reminder too with these knockout games. You got to get by the round of 16 and the quarters to get the yellows wiped out. So going into this game against Slovenia, right now it's Cristiano Ronaldo has a yellow, Palhinha, Chic Conceição, Pedro Neto, and Ruben Neves. So of those five, obviously you're going to think that. Here's the thing. I'm not even going to go into who I think is going to sit or start. I would ask you guys this. If you, Eric, I'll start with you. And honestly, before I say that, I appreciate both of you guys' time. You guys are on the East Coast. It's late. I really appreciate you guys making time. I know that the folks in the chat do as well. But if you are Roberto Martínez, you're in charge of Portugal, Eric. How do you line up against Slovenia?
I can do whatever I want.
Whatever you want. You're not getting fired. This is make believe.
Okay, I'm going with the 4-2-3-1. Obviously, Costa in goal. I'm actually fielding Cancelo for this one because of what I said. Ability in tight spaces to do something. Pep and Ruben Dias on the left. Minge. The double pivot with Vitinha and Danilo and not Palhinha. Ideally, I would put Palhinha in there, but Danilo. I don't think Ruben Neves has the mettle that I need in midfield. I'm bringing Danilo in because of those set piece situations, the height, the physicality, the defensive positioning there. Then Bruno Fernandes, Bernardo Silva.
Here we go.
You know what? I'd go with Rafael Leão in this one. I'd say to him, this is the game where you need to prove yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be a starter, for me, this is where you prove yourself. I want you to take players on, right? Take players on like he did in the beginning against Czechia, which is very positive, and then things don't go his way, and he's like, and he doesn't want to play anymore. And then up front, I'm going with Gonçalo Ramos. I think Jota is more impactful off the bench than he is in the 90 minutes. He's just so explosive, that guy. And I think that if you put Cristiano Ronaldo there, it's just going to be just too predictable, man. and watch him score a hat trick against Slovenia. But
I mean, he's capable.
He's more than capable of doing
Yeah.
that. You saw the 2 goals he scored against Ireland, but
For sure.
this is different. They're going to beat the shit out of him. Excuse my language.
No, that's okay. Before you get to yours, I am of the opinion that Ronaldo the sub is much more of a detriment than Ronaldo the starter, simply because, and I've done this before, where it's like, all right, everyone's going to be doing this during a 0-0 match, and if you're watching on YouTube, it's when's he going to put him? He's not warming up yet, and that is something I don't think Roberto Martínez wants to deal with. I would much rather him start him and then bring him off, whether it's at 45, whether it's at 60, if he's not obviously being impactful. But I think Ronaldo, the starter, is much more of a positive than Ronaldo, the potential sub. Nathan, what do you think would happen? Or if you had your druthers, how would you come out against Slovenia?
I would say a pretty similar lineup. And the only thing I would add, I agree that as bad as Leao has been, I just feel like if he has his moment, breaks down the door, we've got a real player on our hands, and we'll need that going forward, even after the Slovenia match too. So I would start the same lineup, with the exception of I think I probably would go with Ronaldo, and then sub in Ramos later. I do think that. The other thing I'd be looking to put in Neto pretty quickly for Leao if it's just not working out. I still want to see what Neto's got. I really feel like he's got something special as well. He hasn't been able to bring it. But yeah, I think we kind of all know the base, players that really need to be on the pitch to affect the match, and all the ones that we've discussed here tonight. Very similar look to the Turkey match, with maybe some slight adjustments. I would love to have Painha on the pitch. I really would. But I agree. I think we need him against France.
Yeah, I would go in terms of formation. I'd go with the same formation that we used against Turkey. I'd go Costa in the back, Pep and Ruben Dias in the center, Cancelo on the right, Minge on the left. I think you have to go with Danilo because and it's one of those things where it's like I say it and I automatically think I'm disrespecting Slovenia, so that's going to bite me in the ass, right? But if you're talking about strategy, this is a practical decision that could help you win the goddamn tournament. Because if you have Palinha in the lineup against either Belgium or France, and he somehow comes unscathed, you have that dude then for your semifinal and potentially a final. So it's a big decision. And if I was starting, if I'm Roberto Martínez, I would not play Palinha. I'm not saying at all, unless you want to kind of hold something maybe that to assure that you're playing in the quarters. Maybe bring him on at the end, but I don't think I could play him. So I would have Bruno in the middle, or in the midfield I'd have Bruno and Palinha, and then Bruno and Vitinha, and then I'm giving Bernardo and Lyon and CR7 my last 3 spots. What I don't want to see is a scared Roberto Martínez to pull the plug on anybody.
If Ronaldo starts, he's not coming off, buddy.
But you know what? We'll see. We'll see if that's the case. But I just think it's too big of a distraction, and maybe that's the fault of that's the fault of Martinez, it's the fault of Ronaldo, it's the fault of the federation, really, that it becomes that becomes a discussion, or that it becomes a distraction, I should say. But I just don't think him the sub is the way to go. But I mean, I could be wrong too.
They made it a distraction. Playing him as a starter in the third game made it a definitive distraction.
Eric, he missed the first 2 friendlies and he needed some action. That is the answer from our leader, right, Roberto Martínez.
Right. Listen, he could have put all the Cristiano Ronaldo talk to rest by not playing him as a starter in that game. put somebody else, Jota or Ramos, and you're saying, look, I'm rotating my team. The only guy I'm not rotating is, you put Pagui in, but the only guy I'm not rotating is Costa because I need him to have some more reps, and some understanding with whatever players I have ahead of him. But no, he made it an issue because now everybody thinks that Cristiano Ronaldo went to him and said, "You're playing me in that game." That's the
whether it happened or not, right?
What? Whether it happened
or not, yeah.
That's the narrative, and that's a distraction, and that's something that Martinez has to contend with instead of just figuring out what's my best team to play against Slovenia in the round of 16. Nope.
Yeah. Well, boys, I really appreciate you guys making time. I know it's late on the East Coast. It's getting late in Texas. I do appreciate you guys making time for the pod. I think the thing that has that I've liked about having these live pods, one, you could see all of the interaction between the folks on the chat. It's once we get in a conversation, it's so hard to go to chat and then conversation. Yeah. But I appreciate both of you guys for making time. Eric, where are you going to be? Are you going to be anywhere this weekend in terms of play-by-play for Apple?
No, I got the weekend off, so
look at this guy.
I'll be able to prepare myself emotionally. Well, I got it's a crazy schedule after that, man. So so I'll be able to prepare myself emotionally with some relaxation, watching the other teams get knocked out. I'm looking forward to seeing, Switzerland and Italy go at it. So we'll see.
How far in advance do you know your assignments?
About a month and a half, 2 months.
Are you coming out to California at all, bud?
I've got it till the end of July, and I'm not. No, I'm not. We have Leagues Cup. So in Leagues Cup, I'm in Canada.
Right, thanks a lot for coming, dude. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm in Texas. And I was in Portland. They sent me to Portland.
I saw that.
So that was a long trip. But no, they don't send me to West Coast too often. So I'll be in Minnesota. I'm everywhere though. I'm everywhere. But I'm gonna make it out. I do have a San Jose game.
That as in but not in California.
No, not in California. In Minnesota, San Jose.
I can't make that one. Sorry.
Yeah, that would have been nice.
It would be nice. Eric, my thanks to you, Nathan, as always, man. Make sure you guys are reading the player ratings on Portugal.net. Nathan does a great job on those, and just to both of you guys, thank you guys so much for making time. I know that we did talk about I wouldn't say the negative side of things, but I mean it's just I don't want to be a podcast that is just rose-colored glasses and doesn't think that there are issues. Of course there are issues. I think, but this is also where we can talk about that. And I think we had an honest discussion that hopefully the viewers and the listeners found to be helpful. So to both Nathan and to Eric, my thanks to both of you, folks.
Great to be here.
All right, buddy. We are gonna bid you guys adieu, adeus, as they say in Portuguese. But to all of you guys who tune in and listen and interact, I wish I could get to everybody, but it's crazy that all this interaction that we get. But I'm very confident, and the three of us are confident that Portugal is going to pull off the victory, and then we await the winner of France and Belgium. Who knows what's going to happen, folks, but it's going to be a great ride and a wild one all the way through. So, Força Portugal!